Thrivers, today I'm talking about how narcissistic parents or malignant narcissistic parents use guilt to control you well into your adult life. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how they do it, what guilt is. We're going to learn some things about guilt that are interesting to learn. And more importantly, we're going to learn how to break free of the guilt that has been instilled in you. And that's the important part. That's where narcissistic abuse recovery meets complex PTSD recovery. So if you're ready to not only learn about how they do it and why, but more importantly, what you can do about it, make sure you watch to the end. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach. I'm super passionate about helping people overcome narcissistic abuse, childhood trauma, and complex PTSD. I'm also the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet live on Zoom every week. And the tips and suggestions I give in my videos, we do those together. So if you feel like you can benefit from weekly assistance in a consistent way, with a group of like-minded thrivers, make sure you check out the School of Transformation. Now, currently the school is closed, but the doors to enrollment will reopen for 5 days the first week in March. Okay, so let's dive in and let's talk about guilt, because sometimes we hear guilt and we know that people use it to control, and it can sound like an emotion that we don't want to have. The reality, though, is that guilt has its place. Okay, guilt has its roots in empathy. And when we feel guilty, it's because we feel that we've done something that has caused harm to someone. And that uncomfortable emotion that comes up when we feel guilt, right? Because it does not feel good. In fact, it's just above the emotion of shame on the map of consciousness, which I'll put here. So you can see that it's just above shame. And guess what? Shame is one step above death. That's how low of a vibration these emotions have. The lower the vibration, the more uncomfortable they feel in the body. Okay, so back to it being a good thing. When we feel that low vibration and it doesn't feel good in our body, it motivates us to make amends. It motivates us to notice what we did, to learn from our mistake. It motivates us to change if we have to. Okay, so it has its place. The problem is, I've said this so many times in other videos, the problem is that malignant narcissists take something good and they turn it into something harmful for you. And that's what happens with a malignant narcissistic parent. Okay, so in childhood, we feel guilt at a very young age. And in fact, one study that I came across said that we can feel it the second day of life. I don't know how accurate that is, but I will agree to the fact that it's very easy to make a child feel as if they've done something wrong. You can do it with a look, right? Parents can do it with that look of contempt. Just an expression to a toddler causes them to pause and feel as if they've done something wrong. It can be instilled with a tone of voice, a stern tone of voice, and the child reacts scared that they did something wrong. Okay, so it's an emotion that we can feel at a very young age. Now, narcissistic parents, because they don't see their child as separate from themselves, they feel that that child is something that should do, think, be, and feel what they choose. Almost like they are going to program that child, right? So that it serves their needs. Now, it shouldn't be that way in a healthy family environment, but that's how it is with the narcissistic family environment. So let's say the parent is not feeling very happy at that moment, and the toddler has its toys and is super happy. The malignant narcissistic parent will shame that child, will make that child feel as if they're doing something wrong. So there's the guilt. And by making it feel so emotionally painful and making that child feel as if they are bad because they did something wrong, now it's intertwined with shame. And again, if in adulthood, we don't like how guilt feels in our body. We don't like how shame feels in our body. Imagine a small child. They don't want to feel that. It's too overwhelming for them. And so the child starts learning, I don't have to feel this emotion, this horrible guilt or shame, as long as I sacrifice whatever's my passions, my happiness, my characteristics, my perspective, my thoughts. As long as I sacrifice me, then I don't feel this guilt. And so a coping skill begins to develop from the way that the narcissistic parent is using guilt to control. Because it's so painful, the child develops a coping skill. And this coping skill is go along with whatever mom or dad says. Stop feeling. If feelings are what mom and dad don't like, don't feel. If play gets me in trouble, don't play. And the child begins to sacrifice self. Okay, now in childhood, that's the best coping skill that the child can develop because that's all that they have available for them, right? So in a way, the brain is trying to help that child to deal with the overwhelming shame and guilt that they're being bombarded with. Now, here's the problem. Fast forward, and now that child is an adult, and that adult has their own life now, hopefully, right? That's hopefully. So they could be married, or they could have a career. They could have moved to a new place. They're experiencing new things. And the parent views any sort of individuality in their child as a threat to them, right? Because now they're losing control. So once children become teenagers or in their early 20s and they start making their own decisions, this is a huge threat to the narcissistic parent, the malignant narcissistic parent. And because guilt was a template they used in your early childhood, think of it as like a program that has an on-off button, right? So you're living your life, but suddenly your parent can say something that it's like they turn on that program of guilt, and you're flooded with guilt. You're feeling as if you're this bad person. You're doing something wrong. And I have seen so many young adults or older adults even stop pursuing their passions, stop pursuing certain relationships, stop pursuing the things that they love to do because that parent is making them feel guilty. And what's happening, and this is where I'm going to cross the line into cptsd recovery. I want to explain what's happening to you. Okay, so that guilt that you felt in young childhood as a toddler, let's say you moved out. Let's say you're now doing things on your own, right? And for whatever reason, maybe you stopped contact with your parent for whatever reason, okay? But now you're back in touch with them. You've been living your own life because a program, a subconscious program, can go dormant for a while. It's still there, but for whatever reason it's dormant, it's not active in your life. But then you either get back in touch with that parent, or, and here's the thing, this is what we have to understand, or you get into a relationship with somebody that's very much like your caregiver, okay? And all of a sudden you do something like, let's say they want to do something with you. It's a significant other and they want to make plans with you for the weekend, right? And it's a new relationship. And you're like, well, you know, I can't this weekend because I have plans. I have prior plans, but let's get together next weekend. That's a normal thing, right? There's nothing wrong with saying, I can't do this time. But if you are with somebody that uses guilt to control in the same manner that your parent did, they might say something that makes you feel guilty. They might be like, wow, you know, I can't believe that you're not putting our relationship as a priority. It sounds like you don't care. I thought this was something that was going someplace. Or who knows, they might say anything that makes you suddenly feel as if you've done something wrong. Now, what happens at this moment is the guilt that you're feeling for letting this person down, right? Which is, it's okay to feel that guilt. It's okay to feel bad if somebody's disappointed. That's okay. But what happens is that guilt that's coming up because of this person being disappointed wakes up the unresolved guilt, which was mixed with shame when you were a child. And suddenly the feeling of guilt goes from, okay, feeling bad that that person's upset, to I'm going to be abandoned if I say no to this person. All of a sudden there's a shift, and your old trauma is what's showing up in the body. So I hope you can see how dangerous it is to have that unresolved guilt from childhood, because it's going to create an unhealthy dynamic in a significant other relationship, right? You're going to be suddenly showing up almost as if you have to do, say, think, and be whatever that person wants, because your brain has now confused past and present. Now, here's the thing, and I know that might sound crazy, okay, but when you understand trauma, when you understand complex PTSD and emotional flashbacks, okay, because what happens at that moment that you're in a relationship with a significant other and guilt comes up and it feels almost like your survival's on the line, that's an emotional flashback. What's happening is your nervous system is noticing the guilt you're feeling now, and because the unhealed trauma is still in your nervous system, it's putting the two together as if they are one and the same, which they're not. But at that moment, your brain is kind of showing up as if your survival is on the line. Okay, so that's one scenario. The other scenario is now you're a young adult and you're trying to kind of, spread your wings and fly, so to speak, from your parents' home. And if that parent views that as a threat to them, right, because they want to control, they want to have all that control, then they're going to say things that sometimes don't seem bad. It might sound good. For example, they might say something like, that's what you're going to do. That's where you're choosing to live. I mean, that's just, isn't that dangerous? That's a dangerous place to live. Or you're in a relationship with someone, and especially if this person is healthy, the malignant narcissist isn't going to support that relationship. So they're going to be like, that's the person you're with, they're not good for you. And they're going to be saying things always with the connotation, I'm only telling you this because I care. No one knows better than mom or dad. I'm only saying this because I'm trying to help you. Translation, I'm trying to control you. But they don't say that. They make it sound like they're trying to take care of you. They have your best interests at heart. However, any authentic decision you want to make, and that doesn't serve their purpose in some way, shape, or form, is going to be criticized, and they're going to try to make you feel bad. They're going to try to make you feel guilt, as if you're doing something wrong. And when they do it in this way, it creates intense cognitive dissonance. My parents know what's best for me. My parents always have my back. My parents love me. My parents would never say anything that would harm me, together with everything they're saying is always going against what I want. So now your brain is in cognitive dissonance. It's being pulled in two separate directions. When that happens, your brain does crazy things to try to resolve the cognitive dissonance, including deleting anything that has caused you pain. So if that parent always takes away the things you love and that cause you a lot of pain, your brain will delete that and cause you to focus on, look, my parents said they love me. Look, my parents said they want what's best for me. And It's at that moment where you might forfeit and sacrifice you to please them, to resolve the cognitive dissonance, and to not feel the intense emotion of guilt. Okay, so that's what's happening in the body. I'm trying to make it, I'm hoping that you understand that, because when you don't understand it, it can feel as if your body is out of your control, right? Your logical mind wants to do things, but your body has the reins and it's taking you in the directions that you don't want to go. So what can you do about it? Let's get into the cptsd recovery part. When a parent uses guilt to control you, what can you do about it? The first thing is to start noticing it. We can't change anything until we start seeing in our conscious mind or with our conscious mind what they're doing, right? So we start noticing, wow, every time I have a different thought than my parent, somehow I'm made to feel as if, that's bad. Oh, wow, when I have a boundary, they make me feel like I'm a bad child. My mom or dad wants me to call every day. And if I say, well, mom, dad, I can only call once a week, they make me feel bad. If I can't visit because I have a work engagement and I can't go on the day that they invite me, they make me feel bad for saying no, right? Start noticing when guilt is being used to control. That's the first step. The second step is to realize that every emotion, when we're feeling them, they're feedback. Our emotions are feedback, and guilt has a story. There's a story in your nervous system that kicks on when you feel guilty. So I would encourage you to ask yourself, what beliefs do I feel or get kicked on when my parent is making me feel guilty? Okay, it might be, I feel bad that I said no. Because I said no, they're angry. Okay, that's still not a belief. So you have to ask yourself, okay, well, when they're angry, what do I make that mean? Oh, well, if they're angry, that means I'm bad. So now you've uncovered the belief that's associated with guilt. What is the belief? If you don't know the belief, it's going to be running your life unconsciously. And the crazy thing when you start doing, recovery work and you start working to overturn a lot of these things, the crazy thing is when you start seeing what's in your nervous system, so often it is so against anything you would agree to logically. So for example, I know somebody recently told me, they were like, Michele, every time I did something I loved, my significant other got angry at me. And so I stopped. And little by little, I stopped doing everything that I loved. And I was like, well, why? Like, what did you make it mean about you? And she was like, well, if I did that, then he got angry. And I was like, okay. And so he got angry. What does that mean? If he gets angry, that means what? And she was like, well, that means that I'm unlovable or I'm bad. And when she said it, she was like, that's crazy. All I want to do is exercise, and I'm making it mean I'm bad because of his reaction. So the reason I'm giving you that example is because what is in your nervous system, expect it to not make sense. And expect your logical mind to be like, that's insane. Like, why would I even think that? The reason is because it's not coming from your logical part of your mind. It's coming from your subconscious programs that were instilled a long time ago. And while you grow physically, we don't grow, or should say, our beliefs don't grow and get upgraded automatically. We have to do that. We have to do the inner work to do that. So again, if you want to break free, you have to start learning what you're making it mean to you when guilt gets kicked on in your body. Once you know what it means to you, you have to ask yourself, do I agree with that? If you don't, then you have to give yourself a new belief. You have to help your subconscious now. It's not going to form a new belief without your conscious assistance right now. And the way you do that is you say, well, what do I want to believe? It could be, I want to believe that I'm allowed to have boundaries. And when I put my boundaries down, other people are allowed to get upset but I'm still allowed to honor my boundaries. Like, that's okay. That's normal. Boundaries are normal. Boundaries are healthy. All of these are beliefs that you may want to help your nervous system to upgrade to. If you struggle with this, if you find it hard to upgrade your subconscious beliefs, make sure you check out the Thriver School of Transformation, because that's what we do. Okay. Again, just a quick reminder, the doors open the first week in March, but until then, start figuring out what the beliefs are that are getting kicked on when your parent is trying to make you feel guilty, and practice working through the belief by asking yourself, what is that belief? Do I agree with it? And if I could choose, what belief would I want to have?